Hello everybody, welcome to today's video. I've had a lot of people asking me to do more about Vore, just in general playing it, teaching you guys more about it, and I figured why not test something today. Today we are going to be making a tier list of all of the playable empires in Vore. Now, it should be noted that this is a test to see what you guys think. If you guys like it, I will probably do another tier list for Vore, taking into account the mercs and the special mercenaries and all of that. That being said, I want you to keep a few things in mind going forward. Number one, we are going to assume that you are using them in your default state, no added traits. Number two, we are assuming that this is a free-for-all setting where it is you versus every other empire. And that while diplomacy is on and alliances are allowed, at the beginning you are on your own. Number three, we are going to assume that you are not hiring any mercenaries and that your armies are consisting entirely of this race's army. So, keep those in mind as we go ahead, and I will transfer you over to Video Mystic. Alright, so, I hope Intro Me has explained what we are doing today. So, if you can't tell, I am doing a tier list. Intro Me will have explained that we are going over the races from Vore. But we are going to be talking about these tiers. As you can tell, they're not the normal tiers. At the top, we have the best races. These are the best races that you can expect some really good results out of. Now, keep in mind that in a free-for-all scenario where you're fighting every single empire, you're still going to be hard-pressed to survive just due to how aggressive the AI is, but these will give you the best chance. Good choices are just good overall race choices. You can't really go wrong with them. Okay choices are strong in certain aspects, but really weak in others. Meh choices are races that kind of need an alliance in order to succeed, and don't try it are races that you shouldn't even begin to try. Haven't played are races that I haven't played yet, and after I've played every race I will come back and update this, but for now I have this tier here for any race that I haven't played or don't know much about. Now, as we talk about each race, I will be swapping to in-game, where I will go over what their abilities are. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first race, which is the Alarunes here. If we go in-game and bring up the Alarune, they take reduced damage from ranged attacks, but increased damage from melee. They absorb their prey slowly. And they can use Pollen Cloud once per battle. And this, they don't all have Greedy. My races all have Greedy, just because. So, the Pollen ability can inflict a few different status effects in a 3x3 area. That's alright. I mean, a little slow. Slow absorption is not the best, but it does give you a longer time that after you've died, after the prey has died, you can deal damage to them and absorb health. The reduced damage from ranged attacks is actually way better than you would think. If you're going up against certain races, they love to spam ranged units, such as the fairies, or I think the avians spam them too. point is, if your enemy spams the ranged units, then this is good, but it's really offset by that melee attack. And considering that a lot of monster races are melee focused, you're not gonna have a fun time against literally any monster race. So for those reasons, I'm going to have to put our Alarone in meh. I'm gonna have to put them in the meh tier. I believe in large enough numbers you could make a really strong army out of them, but considering that pretty much every monster race is melee and a lot of AI empires will mostly throw melee units at you, that weakness to melee damage really fucking hurts. So I would honestly put it in meh. The only thing that saves it from don't try it is the fact that they have that poison cloud ability. And that cloud ability can affect a bunch of different status effects, which could be useful. But overall, they just seem really weak. Next up are the ants. The ants have pack strength, which gives them increased strength if friendly units are within a certain amount of tiles of them. But it's capped at a max of 2 friendly units being nearby. This basically requires you all to cluster up or to have small groups. They are very bad with ranged weapons, which is a very good offshoot to what we just saw. They're bad with ranged weapons, so you would want to focus with melee units, meaning they'd be a very good counter to the Alarone. And ant pheromones will summon some friendly feral ants, depending on how many units have the trait. So, basically, each battle, when you go into it, I'm sorry, my throat's a little dry. When you go into each battle, it will roll the dice for each of your units. And for every ant unit you have a chance of summoning a feral ant to the battlefield to help you. How I feel about these guys, I'll put them in okay tier. They're not quite good enough for a good choice slot, but they're not bad enough to be meh. In fact, that ability to spawn feral ants to help you can actually help bolster your army's numbers, which can be really useful, especially if you're playing with smaller army size. And considering that all of your units are going to be focused on melee, you're often going to use what I call the surround and gank strategy, which is very effective. It's where you take all of your melee units and surround them around an enemy unit if you can, and you all just attack that one unit. It can be quite effective, and because of that, you get that bonus for having 2 or more allied units nearby. So, yeah, they're okay. The only thing that keeps them from being in the good or best tiers, in my opinion, actually, no, I think we could bump them up to good. Yeah, now that I think about it, I think I'll bump them up to good. Because now that I think about it, being able to summon those allied ants on top of having that increased strength if you're near by at least 1 or 2 allied units really causes a melee-focused ant army to be pretty strong. So, yeah, I'll say the ants are a good choice. They're not best, and what keeps them from best races is that ranged ineptitude. Ranged units are really good, especially if you can kite a whole enemy army with them. So that's the only thing that keeps them from there. But if you want to go for melee only, definitely try the ants out. And next up, we have the avians. Now, I really like the design of the avians. I don't know why. However, they've only got two traits: keen shot and featherweight. Keen shot means that their ranged weapons do additional damage, and featherweight means they move slightly faster and get melee and Vore dodge bonuses, but they take extra damage from melee. Again, with the melee weakness. I don't like these with the melee weakness. The problem with the melee weakness, again, is that every frickin' monster race is melee. Pretty much. I think fairies are the only ones that aren't, and kobolds are the only ones that can be given weapons. For the most part. Don't quote me on that. So this melee weakness sucks, but it's made up for in the fact that they have a higher chance to dodge melee and Vore actions, and they have one more action point per turn, meaning they can move further. That keen shot also gives them additional damage on ranged weapons. So if you're good, you would play a ranged only army, being able to dodge your enemies because you can move further than them. And when you combine that with your ranged weapons doing more damage, you could actually pretty decently combat a lot of things. So I'll put the avians in the good choice tier. They're not too good in the grand scheme of things, and you definitely probably won't be winning a free-for-all scenario with just the avians, but I can see that increased dodge working in your favor. Next up are the bats. Another race I really like the design and concept of. Bats have the flight ability, meaning they can pretty much go anywhere on the map as long as they can stop and stand there. They have a flat 10% chance to dodge all Vore and normal attacks. And their melee attacks will heal them by a small amount. So, this really lends itself to a sort of hit and run style. And that could actually be rather useful because of that flat 10% chance to dodge, plus the vampirism where you get a health back on all the damage you do. That can really scale into the late game when everything's pretty high level. And that flight ability means you can basically fly right over the enemy defenses into the backline to take out those pesky archers. So, for the bats, I will put them in okay as well, alongside the avians. Again, not as good as what the ants have, in my opinion, but not terrible. Next up, we have the bees. Now, the bees, they also have flight. They have keen reflexes, which gives them a significant amount of dodge against ranged attacks. They have increased agility if their friendly units are nearby. And their melee attacks have a chance to poison. All of these are really good when combined. In fact, I would actually say that for the bees, they would go right alongside the ants up here in the good choices tier. Not only does having increased agility make it harder to hit, their flat chance to be able to dodge incoming ranged attacks, plus being able to poison on melee attacks, can be really useful. And you don't realize how useful poison can be late game, but early game, poison is super useful, as you can knock out some of the strongest enemy units with it. So definitely going into good choices territory here. And after the bats, we have the bunnies. Now, the bunnies are the first of the prey races. The prey races, as I like to call them, are species in the game that are more than likely going to have a bad time if you pick them. They're prolific breeders, meaning that they produce new population really quick, but they are way easier to vore than most other races. They also have a flat percent chance to dodge all attacks and vore attempts, and they can flee from battle on their fourth turn instead of waiting for the sixth turn, I believe it is. However, this being said, while the bunnies can easily swarm thanks to their prolific breeding, they're sadly, the artful dodge does not help them as much as you would think it does. You would think it would help them a lot, but easy to vore is a huge downside, especially considering that the AI loves to attempt to vore any units you have that are weak. So for this reason, I'm going to put it the bunnies and don't try it. Nah, I'm kidding. I'm going to put them in meh choices. I've actually gotten some success out of the bunnies. The problem is that with the bunnies, you have to be ready to lose your highest level units at any time, because that easy to vore stat really hurts. Really hurts. And next up are the cats, which I used to play all the time. And here's our first of what I like to call initial release syndrome. The cats are one of the furry races that were added in like when the game was released. As you can tell, they only have Pounce and Escape Artist. Now, Escape Artist is really useful. Them being able to more likely to escape from predators is a great thing, because that means there's a higher chance that anytime your units are devoured, that they'll manage to get out and you can at least make it out with 1 or 2 units. And Pounce allows you to jump to a target that is within 2 to 4 tiles of you. This is really great for closing the distance, but it's not as strong as some other races have. The problem with cats is I feel like they should have 1 or 2 more races or abilities, but I don't know what that would be without making them overpowered. So for this, because they have Pounce, and because of that artful dodge, I'll put them in okay. They don't have a whole lot going for them, but what they do have is pretty decent. In fact, I would actually argue that those are 2 of the best abilities in the game. And I used to play with them a lot, so I should know. Cryptors, I'm not even going to waste time on what their abilities do. I have not played the Cryptors, and I don't plan on playing the Cryptors. The Cryptors just, I don't know how to feel about that. It feels like undead robot to me, and I don't know how to feel about undead robots doing Vore. But we have the deer up next. And if we take a look at the deer are evasive battlers as well, so they can flee on the 4th turn. They are also artful dodgers, and they have pack defense, meaning they have higher agility if friendly units are nearby. They're not necessarily what I would call a prey race, though they don't have very many offensive capabilities. The deer the deer don't have a lot going for them. And personally, I think that sucks, considering they were the last major race to be added to the game. And this does suck, but I'm gonna have to put them in meh alongside the Alaroon and the bunnies. Actually, considering this is based off of a free-for-all scenario, just don't try it. You'd actually have better chance with the bunnies and the Alarum than you would with the deer. And the reason I say that is because the deer don't have prolific breeding. So if you lose a deer unit, you're fucked. And they don't have that poison cloud. All they have is the ability to run away on the 4th turn, a flat chance to dodge all attacks, and pack defense. And sadly, while one of those is good, being Artful Dodge, the other two are not the best in my opinion. Now, this isn't to say that you couldn't win a game as the deer. I would just recommend, if you go in as the deer, be ready to alliance with the first race you can, because you don't have a lot going for you with the deer. They're slow to build up, and yeah, you can run away more often, which will save you a lot more units, but that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So, sadly, they're our first. Don't try it. Dogs are up next. They have Pack Will and Pack Defense. And that's it. Seriously, that's it. Again, don't try it. Seriously, don't try a free-for-all as just the dogs. Pack Will and Pack Defense are decent buffs, but at the same time, they require your units to be tightly packed. And unlike the ants, where you're going to be using a lot of melee units, or the bees, where you're going to be wanting to do as much poison damage as possible, you are not going to be close enough all of the time to get that bonus. Not only that, that being all your race has going for it sucks, meaning you'll be heavily reliant on mercenaries and special mercs in particular to make up for the lackluster output of your army. So sadly, just don't try it with the dogs. Driders are next on our list of these races. No. The Driders are able to climb and pass through trees on the map, which, I mean, okay. And they have the ability to inflict the webbed status effect for 3 turns, which lowers action points to 1 and reduces the stats of anyone you hit. So all of your Driders can use that ability. Passing through trees, there's only been a handful of times where it's been trees specifically preventing my passage. But that webbing is a decent thing. I'll put the Driders in meh tier. They're not bad, but you'd probably see better success using another race. It's not often that it's trees blocking your way, though if that status applies to the world map when you're passing through forest and other type obstacles, like the forest specifically, that increases the action cost to 2 per tile, then that would definitely bump them up to okay. Because forests do slow down an army's progress quite a lot in the grand scheme of things. Equines are next. The Horsey Boys. They have Charge and Strong Melee. Charge gives them a significant movement speed for the first 2 turns of every battle, and they do additional damage in melee. This combo is hella powerful. In fact, I would say because of this combo, if you were to make a really strong melee-only equine army, you could probably dominate battles within those first 2 turns. Because those first 2 turns basically allow you to close the gap on the enemy, or even the enemy's backlines, pick and gun down whatever target you want with your increased melee abilities, and then move on. So, for this reason, I am going to put them in good choice. This is a really strong combination. Sure, you don't have any additional effects to increase your damage output, like the ants do, and you're not summoning anything to aid you or inflicting poison, but your ability to chase down your enemy in those first 2 turns can sometimes actually tilt a battle completely in your favor. Foxes are next, and sadly, the foxes also suffer from initial release syndrome. They have Thrill Seeker and Artful Dodge. Artful Dodge, we know what it does, but Thrill Seeker, it increases their stats as they get lower in health. I mean, okay. That's not really the best, but if this increases your damage or agility, I have noticed that as a fox got lower in health, they started dodging a lot more attacks. Is this enough to keep them from don't try it? I'd say so. I actually put the foxes in meh tier. They could be better. They really could be better. And what keeps them from being an okay choice is the fact that they don't have something else going for them. And it sucks because I really like the idea of the foxes. Frogs are up next. And the frogs are also a relatively recent addition. At least to me they are. They come with heavy pounced, ranged Vore, and clumsy. Let's start with clumsy. They are slower and do slightly less melee damage and are slightly less accurate. But here's the kicker. Ranged Vore. Unit can perform Vore actions at a range of up to 4 tiles, but chance of success drops per tile, but doesn't drop against flying units. This is fucking strong. Being able to devour an enemy from 4 tiles away is really powerful. Not only this, but the ability to do it perfectly accurate against flying enemies, such as the bats, makes them really good. And heavy pounce. Pounce does extra melee damage based on the weight of prey. But defense is also lowered for 1 turn after pouncing based on the weight of the prey. Pred. So basically, they have normal pounce, but their version does a lot more damage and will reduce defense of whoever they land on. The frogs easily throw themselves all the way up to the best class. That is just so much. Being able to do even more melee damage from 4 tiles away, devour anyone from 4 tiles away, that is just really strong. Sure, you do slightly less melee damage, and you move slower. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're playing them right, you're going to be throwing yourselves at the enemy team's backlines anyway. So, the frogs easily steal the show for our first best race. Next up are the Harpies. Oh, the Harpies. The Harpies are somewhat I like the idea of. Again, they have flight. They can pass through obstacles and other units in tactical mode, as you know you do, but they pass through all terrain at a movement cost of 1. So what this means is that if you have an army of all Harpies, hills, swamps, forest, all of that crap that would normally slow you down doesn't. And that is really strong. And they gain a significant amount of chance to dodge range attacks. The Harpies also get to join the Frogs and Best, in my opinion. Being able to move through all terrain on the tactical map, or strategic map, I should say, for an action point cost of 1, means that you could usually get to an enemy team's base before their army has even reached you. Not only this, it makes consolidating your forces way easier, and being able to dodge ranged attacks more consistently is also helpful. Plus, the flight ability allows you to close the distance on people in the tactical mode. This means that things such as the walls upgrade will not stop you. Humans. Just don't. Don't. You probably already know why I'm... You know what? No. We're making a new tier. We're making a new tier. We're making a new tier here. Hold on. Fill color. Black. 2D shapes. We're making a new tier here. Hold on. Making a new tier. Ahem. There we go. Don't fucking play them. No. For those of you who don't know, I am very much against human preds. If you are the kind of person who would legit boot up Vore, and when you have all of these other options, you choose human, let me know in the comments so I can find you and I can slap you. Because, I'm sorry, of all of the races to play, I'm not going to be playing a filthy fucking human. I don't even play humans in D&D, where they are arguably the best race. Like, seriously, look at what they have. Sure, they can pick any stat on level up and gives a random +1 to 2 random stats when they level up. And they require less experience to level up. Sure, okay, so they do better as they level, but they're fucking human. Fuck the humies. Fuck the flesh bags. Fuck the skinnies. I don't like them, and if you're the kind of person that legit plays humans, you can bite me. Next up are the imps. Oops, and if we scroll down, here they are. They have packed stomach, which increases their stomach capacity if friendly units are nearby. And they have a chance at the beginning of a battle to summon a weaker unit from their race to battle. This is really good, actually. This ability, just like with the ants, is really good. Consider you have a whole army of nothing but imps. Each one of those imps has a chance to summon a weaker imp into the battle to join you. And if any of those are melee and they stay near each other, they have an increased stomach capacity, meaning you can devour higher level units. So, if I had to put them somewhere, I'll put them in okay. Astral Call is strong, but it's only really strong under the assumption that your army is completely made up of imps. If your army is not completely made up of imps, then it's not as strong as it could be. And Pack Stomach, while cool, isn't the most helpful of abilities, but it does put them on par with the other members of the OK tier. Next up, the Kangaroos. And if we scroll down to the Kangaroos, they have Born to Move. They suffer a smaller defense penalty and no movement penalty from Vore. And they have an additional item slot. So this means that they can have 3 items and they move faster even with creatures in sight of them. Is this the best to be playing with as your main race? No. In fact, but both of those are good upsides with no very strong downside. So, for this reason, I'll put them in okay. They don't have a strong downside to bump them further down the tier list, and both of those are really good upsides. Actually, I'll put them in good. Just being able to have 3 items on you means you can have a defensive item, your weapon, and a spell book. Or you could have a triple spellcaster. Or you could have someone with double defensive items and a weapon. That just opens up a lot to work with. Considering. Actually. In fact, I would actually argue that while they're probably weaker starting off, come late game, they would jump up to best race due to late game spellbooks being such a high tier. But I'll put them in good. I'll put them in good race for now. They're not the best, but that triple slot ability is very useful. And not suffering a movement penalty from devouring enemies or allies basically means that you could still close the gap, which is definitely more useful than you would think. Next up are the Crux, and I'm not going to rank these as I have never played the Crux. I haven't even hired them as mercs, as I don't know what they do. So for now, they're going in the haven't played tier. Lamias. Now, Lamias are definitely a unique thing. Not only can they do tail Vore, but they have double stomachs, which allow them to hold double the amount of prey. Being able to have that double stomach is actually very useful, as it allows you to devour more per game. Plus, they have a bonus to Vore if they have nothing in their stomach, and their failed Vore attacks will result in a weak bite attack anyway. So, yeah, they get to go right the way up to best, in my opinion. Not just because I like snake girls or anything, but because that double stomach allows them to devour at least twice as much as a normal race could. The fact that they still deal a bite on a failed Vore attempt, and they have an increased chance of voring an enemy if there's nothing in their stomach, just bumps them way the way up there. That is just a massive combo with no downsides. Lizards. I'm going to put them and haven't played either. I have not played the lizards, so I'm not going to talk too much on them. Merfolk. The Merfolk I did play at one point. I used to play them a lot, actually. They are harder to hit with magic. They heal 2 HP per turn and heal completely outside of battle, but if digested by a predator, they also heal that predator a lot more. And they are harder to eat, but if they are eaten, they have a hard time escaping. All of these are really, really good. However, that fact that if they are eaten, they have a hard time escaping, and if they are eaten, they are worth even more healing, bumps them from best to good. As those are some pretty strong downsides. But all in all, the Merfolk are a good race, and you can't go wrong with the Merfolk. Panthers are, again, going in, haven't played, as I have not played the Panthers yet. However, I imagine they are very similar to the Cats. Cilia. Again, another race I haven't played. So I cannot comment on them. Sergals! I'm going to comment on these, as I have played them at least once. And I just love the design of Sergals. So, bite me. They have keen reflexes, strong melee, and are escape artist. Being able to dodge melee, being able to dodge ranged attacks easier. Having strong melee on top of escape artist bumps them all the way up to best, because all of those are really strong upsides and they don't have any downsides. There is no downside to picking the circle race. Sharks. Now, I have played the Sharks before. The Sharks, if we take a look at them, they have the Biter. They do more melee and range damage against targets with less health, but also increases for negative status effects the target has. So basically, this means the weaker the enemy, the more damage they're going to do to them. And they could do 2 Vore attempts per turn. This is really strong, and unlike our previous aquatic race of the Merfolk, they don't have a strong downside to counteract it. So the Sharks go right up to best, in my opinion. There's no strong downside, and being able to do 2 Vore attempts gives you 2 Vore attempts per turn that you most likely will succeed. Slimes. Now, the Slimes are a unique case. When they attack, they have a chance to slime enemy units, which lowers their MP or magic points to 50% of their maximum. They take less damage from attacks, but are easier to Vore. And they take additional acid damage. So this means that if they are eaten, they are going to die quicker. But it also means that they take less damage from the traditional battle. However, because of the fact that the AI will almost always go for the Vore, I'm going to have to put them in the meh tier. They're not that good, and they don't have a lot going for them unless you give them a lot going for them. Tauros. The Tauros. The cow people. Honestly, from my experience, they're really good. Yeah. Strong melee and forceful blow. Strong melee means that they do additional damage in melee combat. And forceful blow means that when you hit them, you knock them back and have a chance of stunning them, I believe. So, the Tauros are definitely a solid, okay choice. While what keeps them from the good choices tier, like the equines, is the equines have the ability to charge you down at the start of a round, whereas the Tauros don't. Sadly. And finally, we have the wolves. Our final race to judge. And they just have pack strength and pack ferocity. Which means that if you are playing a melee focus and Vore focused wolves, that you'll do fine. However, just like the dogs, these aren't the best, and sadly, I'm going to have to put them in don't try it. Because they don't have any real strong upsides. Anyways, this has been my tier list for the races in Vore War. If you have your own thoughts and opinions and want to try and voice them in the comments down below, go ahead. I will be redoing this after I've played every single race in the game in both small scale and large scale free for all settings. In our next tier list, though, we will be going over the monster races. So, if you guys want to see that, just smash that subscribe button and hit the likes, and I'll try my best to get it out for you guys. Anyways, until next time, I'm Lunar, saying have a wonderful day.